Ronstein, filling in for Christina Sorrento. Somebody needs to mute their microphone.
Sorry about that.
I'm filling in for Christina. She's out this morning. This is DRC for January 30th, and our first item is 11800 Neville Street, a concept plan, Mid-County. All right, here, I think, ready to go.
When Troy left, which I'm the lead reviewer for this concept plan. As you can see from the comments, I think we're excited about the affordable, 100% affordable building, especially we've already kind of had one that came through on Neville Street. So having another one coming into this master plan area, especially close to Metro is another project that we're looking forward to kind of pursuing and helping to get to the finish line. This project is 152 units. I think the unique thing about this is adding a 4-bedroom component, 7 stories. Our comments are overall, I think the access point off of coming into the property and then removing the surface spaces and looking for an opportunity to create some more open space, even though it's not required, and then figuring out the interim frontage condition off of Neville, and then also the potential dedication. I think those were the 3 major things that I could tell from our internal review. I'll turn it over to the applicant team to kind of go through the things that they may see from our comments that maybe have issues as well. But that's what, from internal discussion, I thought that was the hot topic items.
Yep. Hi, Troy. Can you hear me okay?
We can
Can
hear
you
you.
hear me? You can? Okay.
Yeah.
Hi, Heather Dale-Polsky, land use and zoning attorney for the applicant. We reviewed all of the comments, and I think, Troy, that we agree with you that those seem to be the main comments. I know obviously we only have a half hour on this meeting this morning, so our team in reviewing the comments kind of came up with a list of sort of subsequent drill down meetings that we think that we want to have in particular, because we are planning to use the speed to market program here, meaning that after concept plan, we would go to sketch plan, preliminary plan, and site plan all together. So that's why it's really important to us. And as you know, from other projects that have used speed to market, really important for us to kind of get to comfort and, pretty good certainty now early on in the process, because obviously we have to take our next step to site plan level drawings and detail. So I think that there are sort of 2 main drill down meetings that we wanted to have with you all. So one being on the street section and the streetscape, which I think probably wants to be us with MNC PPC, MC DPS right of way, and MC DOT, because I think sort of everybody had comments regarding that topic. So that was one of them. And then I think, Troy, to your point about the access point, the surface spaces, open space, I think we probably also just want sort of a general meeting with MNC PPC on sort of, I'll just call them sort of like design related issues. There were also some comments just on architecture and whatnot too that I think we can also cover. But I think in terms of just sort of follow-up drill down meetings, we did want to have get those 2 scheduled at some point in, in the next week or 2.
That sounds good. We have a holding meeting every Wednesday that can facilitate a meeting with the different agencies. Oh, every other Tuesday, sorry. So next Tuesday would be the holding date. Is that correct? Yeah,
That's right.
So that
Okay.
we can just go essentially coordinate that now. If that works, we probably can break that up start off with the transportation components, and then we can probably have the follow up with the design team if that works with everybody's schedule.
Okay.
Sure. If you're going to do that, can you coordinate with Emily to set up your time on the meeting?
Will do. Okay.
Emily Palmer.
Yep.
Okay. So this would be next Tuesday, the 6th of February, right?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I'm wide open. I guess, team, I know we have our folks on. Is anybody having any concerns? Do you guys have an approximate time for when that would be?
I'll check I gotta coordinate with Emily
Okay.
Balmer, and then I can get the time, but definitely that's it'll probably be an earlier time frame similar to this DRC schedule. But I'll get the exact time once I can coordinate with her.
Okay, perfect. So then that basically would take care of sort of the 2 drill down meetings that I said, or really it doesn't have to be 2 meetings, but sort of 2 topics, 2 main topics.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. That's really convenient. Thank you. All right, just running through some other thoughts. With regard to the fire marshal comments, I wanted to just note for everyone that Marie Labaugh did reach out to our civil engineer, Andy Bradshaw, and they are on the same page, so we don't see any issues there. We think we're comfortable going to preliminary plan and site plan level of detail on fire comments. So we don't need a drill down meeting there. Wanted to also touch base on this actually did not come up in the DRC comments, but we have actually been making the rounds of meeting with the county council members just to talk to them about this new community because it's pretty cool. And a question came up from council member Sales staff as to, and sorry, I know I'm hitting this with you, hitting you with this out of the blue here, but came up from her staff of whether the relatively new zoning text amendment for mixed use housing communities would be applicable here. And they seem to think that it was, and I guess maybe Troy, this is maybe just something putting it in your head here, and we can talk about it in the meeting that we're going to have next week. The one thing that I saw in that ZTA is that it talks about, I think we qualify in terms of the multi-unit living and the affordability, and then it talks about at least 2 commercial uses also being included. And there's no sort of further clarity in the ZTA as to what that means. But again, I know I'm sort of hitting you with this out of the blue, Troy. So maybe it's something you could take a look at and we can talk about in our meeting next week.
Yeah, Heather, thanks for asking the question. This is Matt.
Oh, hey, Matt. Yeah.
The ZTA changed a little bit once it was adopted. I think that commercial requirement was dropped in favor of the affordability. And so the zoning ordinance has been updated to reflect the actual adopted ZTA. And
okay.
I can send you those as a follow-up to this meeting. That section.
I thought I was looking at the adopted one, but perhaps
I thought that it had been taken out, but I can look again.
Okay, yeah, all right, that's great. And yeah, I mean, obviously, if there's an opportunity to use it, I mean, I don't know that it streamlines the process all that much, considering, again, that we're planning on using speed to market anyway, but I guess it does actually, I think it gets you to hearing a bit quicker. So yeah, that would be great. So maybe, Matt, you and I can both sort of just look back in the background and see, and then maybe we can sort of just briefly add that to the end of our agenda next week too.
Sure.
I say from what I remember, there's now not a requirement for
Commercial,
but there's an option to include commercial.
Okay. Did you hear that, Heather?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I'll take a look. I pulled it from the county council website, but maybe for whatever reason it's not. Okay, but yeah, I'll take a look and then we can just touch base on it. I guess at the end of our meeting after we release the transportation folks next week.
Heather, this is Carrie Sanders. Just to follow up on your question about that process, we over the, I guess, winter time brought the associated fee and process to the planning board, and that was adopted. So that piece is in place.
Okay.
But yeah, you may want to, Neil, do you remember if the website about this is up yet, or it is? So there's also a website link that we can send you that outlines the process. So we'll share that with you as well.
That's great. Okay, great. Okay, great. Well, I'm glad I brought that up out of the blue. So thank you for that. Just a few other things, and sort of team, feel free to chime in here too. In terms of rec facilities calculations, I think that was a good comment that we should run those sooner rather than later, because I know there have been some multifamily projects that have, I think on the tot end, had a hard time meeting those. So Andy is going to be running those. We, I think, sort of at this early stage are thinking we're going to include a tot lot. So that will probably alleviate any issues there. But we are going to run those calculations again because we're trying to, do all 3 applications at once here. Just a few other things. I think there was a note about EV spaces, and they're not required here, but we are actually planning to do somewhere between 5 and 10 EV spaces, just because we think that's what the future tenants will want and will need there. We're also going to reach out separately to MCDOT about the TMD plan that we would have to enter into prior to building permit. And I would say too, Nancy Randall is our transportation consultant, and I think probably pretty soon she'll be reaching out to MNC PPC just about I know obviously the White Flint area is a little bit different in terms of the analysis, but she should be reaching out to you guys soon to start coordinating as well. I did have one question, Troy, and you mentioned the 3 surface parking spaces. And I think it was Richard Brockmeyer, your comments said that per section, and I don't have that one right in front of me, of the zoning ordinance, that parking spaces are not allowed between the building and the street. But here, they're actually not between the building and the street. So, they are just behind. I mean, I guess if you sort of extend the building to the left, based on the screen here, they are behind the building. So I think we sort of understand the intent of the comment, which is calling for more landscaping for screening. And I think that's definitely something we're amenable to. I don't know, maybe Andy or Rob, does anybody want to weigh in a little bit more with our thoughts there?
Well, I was kind of curious of Richard's interpretation of it.
Yeah.
In regards to the parking being located between the building and the road, which I don't believe it is. It's on the side, but I was curious to get a little more explanation on that because of the situation here.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's this is Richard. The intent is to try and screen the parking from the road, and the way that the road bends, just with the way the lot is configured. I understand, it is behind the building, sort of, depending on how you're looking. But I think the bigger issue is something we'll talk about when we have that transportation meeting of the site access and site distance. Because that removing those parking spaces might help to shift that further south.
No, understood. We just want to understand the comment a little bit better because of the road bend is what I'm reading into. But we think we're amenable to the suggestion of parallel spaces there along that edge, but they're just not going to be as much. But I think we're open to that as well. So yeah, I'd be happy to discuss more next week on that meeting.
Is there a reason why you need the 3 spaces outside of the 73 spaces that you have internally? Because it seems like those spaces are kind of further from your main.
And so I can chime in real quick, and obviously Don and them can chime in more. But those spaces are intended for Uber Eats, Uber pickups and stuff like that for the residents of the area is the intention. So that's why we're okay with a parallel space or 2, something quick, easy drop off was the intention of those spaces.
So we can, I think, it sounds like there's a few things that tie in together here in terms of sort of design. Richard, you mentioned, access, site distance. I think I said previously that, we are certainly amenable to, to better screening to sort of further the intent of not seeing the parking spaces from the street. So, I think there's probably a lot of ideas that we can bat around here and then, talk about them in our meeting next week.
Sounds good.
Great. Okay. I guess we've still got a little bit of time here, so maybe we can talk about just a few other things. I think, again, I don't think there's a ton of major issues here. We certainly weren't too uncomfortable with the comments, but just to sort of tee up another thing that I think we'll probably talk about in our meeting next week on the MNC PPC side. I think there might have been a few comments about wanting to see walkout units here. And I think there's some pretty distinct reasons why we don't think that that's right, though we understand the intent to activate the frontage. I don't know if maybe Adam or Don or Rob want to speak just a little bit more to that. And again, I don't know that we're going to, resolve the issue in this meeting, but just to sort of tee it up for the discussion next week.
Yeah, Heather, I've been talking to Adam and Don about this comment. There's only 3 units that are really what we're discussing. The ground floor of the unit is roughly 4 or 5 feet out of the ground, so we would need a stoop, which I think would look strange on the streetscape. I think that the windows, we do have floor-to-ceiling windows in those living rooms of those units. which I think helps activate the street. You know, there'll be a warm 18-hour presence on the street. But more importantly, just from a security standpoint, we don't feel for a building of this size that having multiple entrances, even if they are through a unit, is the correct way to move forward. So we would prefer to just leave the design as is with the floor-to-ceiling windows in the living rooms for those 3 units, and then obviously the rest of the facade is activated by the bike room, the leasing office, these other areas that are located there.
Yeah, Rob and Heather, this is Natasha. So the comment
Hey,
comes.
Natasha.
Good morning. The comment comes from the urban design team. So as much as we can help activate the frontage and the streetscape along the project. So that was one of the suggestions that we have. To create like a walkout units. We think that like people going in and out from different entryway help with activation. But if you guys have other strategies, you think window, like a bigger windows and glazing might help, like we are more than happy to discuss that in our follow-up meeting.
Yeah, thanks, Natasha. And I think the rendering that's on the screen right now kind of shows exactly those units, those units that are located on Neville Street, and the sort of the large amount of glazing we're proposing for those units. And I think having the ground floor up 5 feet to me is always a good thing. You know, you never want to be right at ground level, so you're looking directly into a unit. And also it pulls our parking out of the ground. So it's a win-win, but I think that putting stoops there, I think is not the right way to move forward, especially with the security concerns.
Yeah, and based off the ground floor that you submitted, we noticed that there are some other unit on the other end as well. Is that correct, or you only have 3 units?
You are correct, right? So I was thinking of the 3 by the, I think there's one, maybe just 1 unit. Sorry, I should have memorized the floor plan, but I think it's only maybe 1 unit on the end there.
1 unit on the south side, 3 units.
Yeah, there is 1 more unit there, yes.
Okay.
But the same issues, I think, are there as well.
Yeah, okay. So we can discuss all of that. I think we had comments regarding to like activate the lobby and maybe adding like a deeper canopy or increasing the height of the massing in a lobby. But we can discuss all of that with Paul and Atul in our next meeting that we're gonna set up specifically for the design.
Great. Look forward to it.
Yeah, that's great. And I know that obviously this area is mid-county here, but some folks may be aware the developer on this site, TM Associates, recently broke ground on the Sligo apartments site. I think it was just after Thanksgiving, and that was obviously in the down county area, and it did use speed to market. And so we did a concept plan, and then and I think I saw Paul Mortensen on this meeting, if I'm right. So Paul will certainly recall. We had a good number of design meetings with MNC PPC following the concept plan process before we went to sketch preliminary site combined. And not that we necessarily want to have that many meetings, but I think on that site it worked well, and we really were able to sort of hash everything out, sort of utilizing the concept plan process and then the follow-up drill down meeting. So by the time we got to sketch preliminary and site, I think everyone had sort of put eyes along with the community on the site plan level of detail and was really comfortable with it. And so we definitely hope to follow the same sort of process here where our clients are comfortable enough going to site plan level of design and all 3 of those applications combined together, which obviously, involves a lot of, time, cost, and risk on their part. So definitely looking to kind of hone in and just drill down and kind of reach final agreement on all of these issues, in the coming weeks so that they have the comfort to then move very quickly to speed to market, or I suppose potentially this mixed income community process, depending on which we're able to utilize. So,
Heather, if you don't mind, would you mention the name of that project in the Sligo?
Yes, Sligo Apartments, done
on Sligo Street.
Yeah, Sligo Avenue. It's
Sligo
713 to 719 Sligo, and it's just east of the CBD.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, absolutely.
Heather, this is Paul. We're, as Natasha said, we'll be happy to meet with you guys next week. I know you have a very good team here, so we are excited to see this thing come to fruition. So
Great.
we'll continue working with you.
Perfect. Yeah, we appreciate it. Absolutely. That's all anybody can ask. And again, I think actually here our team sort of felt that I think this site we're in a really good place at this point. I think on the Sligo one, there was sort of a lot more design concern, I think fairly so. But I think this one where, I think there's a lot more agreement, at least at the outset here anyway, than there was on that one. So we feel pretty good about things. But I think that was everything that I had on our list. Obviously, we'll have a lot more detailed discussion next week. Team, did I leave anything out, or does anyone have any additional questions that they want to go over?
I'm okay at this time.
I don't have.
Okay. Let me just say, I see someone typed something in the chat, so let me just, okay, that was you, Rob. Adam, Don, anything?
Nothing at this time. Really appreciate everyone's time this morning and the feedback we received, and look forward to reconnecting next week.
Yep. Yeah, and so Troy, I'll just keep a lookout for an email from you about time, and then team, I'll get that over to everybody.
All right, yep, sounds good.
All right, terrific. Well, I think we're all pretty happy with how this is going so far. So we appreciate the sort of detailed thought that everybody put into in their comments that were sent to us, and we look forward to moving forward.
Thank you.
All right, everybody gets 9
Thank
minutes
you.
of their morning back.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Take care. Thank you, everyone. Have a good day.
See everyone soon for the next one. Second DRC item for this morning, second and last. Dickerson Power Plant, conditional use 2024-13. And the Up County Division is here, I think, ready to start.
Good morning. For the record, Mark Beal, zoning planner for Up County. Today we have conditional use for Dickerson Power Plant or Terra Energy for conditional use discussion. It's at the old Dickerson Power Plant in Dickerson. It encompasses the total area is set over 700 some acres. This particular project is looking at a little over 250 or 270 acres. Primarily, the area that is being impacted will be the actual power plant itself, as well as where the old coal storage used to be. And it looks to be that all the work being done at this time is in the IH zone. It may touch a little into the AR zone. I'm still looking at that a little bit, but pretty much we're looking at in this area here, we're looking at a battery storage facility. And then in this area here, we are looking at, a data center in this area here. The battery storage was up in here. You can see the outline of the break between the AR zone and the IH zone. At this time, we've sent comments to the applicant. So at this time is the applicant's meeting to discuss anything they wish at this time or ask any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff Farrell, Terra Energy. I'll let everybody else introduce themselves as it comes up. What Mark said is correct. We're interested in the conditional use on, I think it's 291 acres, plus or minus, which effectively encompasses the heavy industrial land on the property. There's a small area that gets into the agricultural reserve as it sort of abuts the telecommunications easement where the transmission lines run north to south against the heavy industrial land. That's where, again, there's already installation there. Not intending on building any vertical structures there, just want to be able to connect potentially to those utilities that run through that area. What Mark said, we're interested in developing that space based on some communications we've had with the community and with planning staff. Not interested in doing anything in the agricultural reserve land, apart from putting it into some sort of an agricultural easement, conservation land, existing tree stand, to be able to preserve that land. As probably many of you know, there's transmission lines on the property. There are two substations adjacent to the property and a former site of a 542 megawatt coal-fired power plant, which withdrew cooling water from the Potomac and then transmitted electrons onto the grid for close to a century. The plant was decommissioned approximately 2 years ago. It was taken offline, environmental decommissioning through Maryland Department of the Environment. The coal yard has been dug down, cleaned. Almost every possible open permit has been closed and signed off by Maryland Department of the Environment. There's still some potential ongoing monitoring, which you can expect on a property that's had this type of use for this period of time. But there are no concerns from our standpoint or from the state standpoint with the site. I did want to just mention that the site is obviously incredibly complex. It's very unique in the county. And what we're interested in doing through this process is gaining the rights to do these two uses on the property. Because of the types of uses and the complexity of developing them, providing what you would see for a smaller site or a traditional site at a conditional use applications is, quite frankly, it's not able to be done. So a lot of the details that would be desired at a development review committee meeting will come later through subsequent site plans and in a full technical submittal on a sort of a development by development basis. So things like stormwater and building architecture and specific layouts are going to have to get dealt with as those developments come online over the course of probably a decade or potentially longer. So what we're excited about the project. It allows us to reuse heavy industrial land in a way that's less intense from a zoning standpoint and a use standpoint, which means reduced traffic, reduced noise, reduced light, significantly reduced environmental concerns, and try and be a good steward of land and really retain the forest land and conserve the forest land surrounding it, not only to retain those lands the way they are, but also to conceal the activities behind. I think you can probably, those that have been in the area or even across the river in Virginia, you can't really see most of the activity on the site. Well, you can see the smokestacks and the main plant building, most of which is proposed to be taken down as part of the redevelopment. So I just wanted to clarify that specific about site plans needing to come later as applicants come forward. And that's going to happen in detail over years of time. What we really enjoy about the site and what has us excited is the amount of space that's there. It's sort of a blank canvas for this type of work in the county. So there's plenty of room for things like making sure that we have appropriately sized roads, where we have expansion for things like turnaround lanes, access lanes, for things for emergency services. If anybody's been there, it looks fairly simple on the map, but it is a very large and complicated site. I will note that although we are a large property owner there, there is 2 Pepco substations, several county facilities, including the waste to energy facility. There's rail lines that run through the property. There's just a number of heavy industrial uses that sort of surround this property as well. So that's sort of I'm happy to, we don't have a tremendous amount of questions on the comments, but I thought maybe given those introductory remarks, we may have some from agencies or from staff that we could help answer.
Let me add to that, Bob Harris. So those of you who are around the table and on the screen are used to getting into the details of things at DRC and then the approval. But to clarify what Jeff is saying is we're going to anticipate that we will receive conditional support from the different agencies, with those conditions being requirements for us to address following the overall conditional use application. Unless we get a conditional use approval in general for the use, we don't have it doesn't make sense to get into the total details of building footprints and transportation access issues, et cetera. So we understand that, there will be some unanswered questions, and we're hoping that everybody can work with us in this bifurcated kind of process.
To me, it sounds like, so I thought it was, to be honest with you, I looked at the plan and I thought it was solar panels. But I'm wrong?
Maybe.
So I'm familiar. I was just out in Virginia, out in Prince William County, and I saw the data centers and the large transmission lines. I assume you said data center, that's what you're putting here.
There's two uses. First is a battery storage facility, which I think Mark put an image up there briefly, but so that is a resilient.
I thought was the solar. That was solar panels.
So those are basically shipping containers. They're lithium battery storage facilities. So just very briefly, the U.S. energy grid does not have any storage capability. It's starting to come online with projects now, and what that does is it makes renewable energy actually the economics a little bit better on it. So wind can be stored and used during peak hours when maybe the wind's not blowing. Solar can be used overnight. It also allows traditional generation sources, potentially like nuclear and other historic stuff, to run at a lower capacity because they don't have to run at peak hours because you can use batteries to make up peak loads later. So there's a 12-foot high shipping container, for lack of a better term. And if Mark's got an image that he could show, that'd be great that we submitted. They effectively look like that, a little bit bigger. But so solar panels were originally part of our plan. We heard largely from the community and from planning staff about the concerns over doing that. The only reasonable place for us to do that would be in the agricultural reserve. And based on challenges that come along with that, we've decided not to go down that path. So this allows us to do sort of a replacement for the generation and encourage renewables in other places. And then the data centers would be located effectively where the current power plant is. And sort of there is up and to the right of that coal plant, there's industrial land that's flat. There's some buildings there now. You see the white buildings up in the right, upper center of the map. From there, kind of south, is sort of a cleared area where most of the land is open. That's part of the industrial land. They would propose to put data centers there. So this would be connected to the existing utility grid. That means, with the exception of going from the substation to the buildings, that means no new transmission lines, no new electrical infrastructure. And they're able to do that. What you see in Virginia, which is right in the middle of subdivisions and inside, next to businesses and hotels, this would put it on an industrial site and sort of keep it out of the public view, so to speak.
So are the they have, I don't know if anybody's seen it, there's significant transmission lines.
Oh, yeah.
And so do we have that now, or do we need to upgrade that, or?
So there's 5 transmission lines that run north, south, east to west across the property. There's 2 substations. So there's a lot of redundancy. It's not something you see really anywhere, even at other power plants. There's a lot of it. So when you apply for an electrical meter for a heavier load, industrial load, large commercial load, something that a data center would need, they don't get a meter the same way, even like a hotel would or a business, like a big business. They have to go through a load study, and they're responsible for building out or improving or upgrading any of the assets that are on site. And then so it goes through like an 8-month permitting process and review process that doesn't just deal with this area. It goes throughout the entire grid, because electrical grids aren't specific to like this area. It's an 11-state area. Right. So it has to go to the regional transmission operator, has to go to all of the asset holders in the area. And it takes a long time to get the rights to do that.
Jeff, isn't it true, in addition to the existing major power lines, transmission lines there, that there's also a fiber optic line that's been put in,
it's under construction.
It's under construction, and that it is, it ties in directly with the desirability of this site for data storage.
So you're looking at the grid outside of just this, so down further south or north or wherever the grid goes.
They have to look at it across sort of all points within a region. I'm not an expert in it, but there's a load study that you have to do through, in this case, the provider in that part of the county is Potomac Edison. So Potomac Edison runs sort of point on that process, but they have to coordinate with all of the groups that have assets on the utility grid and the regional transmission operator, which manages this 11-state electrical grid that we sit in. The easiest part is connecting from the building to here. The harder part is, what are you connecting to, and what does that affect all the way downstream?
Right.
And the user of that electricity is responsible for everything that needs to be done to make that work. So even if it's an upgrade 2 substations away, the user is responsible for doing those improvements.
Then, because I deal with the roads are they're definitely not what you see in Virginia. So how much traffic do you expect?
So generally, so we really like the battery storage and data center here for a lot of reasons. Employee count's one of them. It's not exactly an area where you would want to add an industrial use that's traditional for that zoning, because that includes a lot of employees and a lot of shipping and trucking traffic. So that's one of the first things that we did, was look at it and try and figure out what is it actually going to work here in that part of the county. So data centers typically have about 1 employee for every 40 or 50 of a normal factory size. So we're going to have less employees than the power plant had on a 24-hour clock. So if they had, and the numbers are in the report, but if they had 150 people working during regular business hours, we would likely have that spread out over a full 24-hour period. So a very large building, the size of like a data center you see in Northern Virginia, may have 6 or 7 employees at any given time. And then they have, 3 8-hour shifts. So the employee count's very, very low. There's no shipping, there's no trucking. You have to build everything, but there's no shipping and trucking on a regular basis. So these are sedans and, passenger vehicles.
Rebecca, we're not anticipating the need for any road improvements on public roads. Obviously, the infrastructure on site will be reconfigured in order to provide whatever circulation to the various uses, but we're not anticipating any need for any public road improvements. So jumping around a little bit, we've gone through the comments. Mark, thank you for getting those to us. The majority of them go back to what I was saying earlier, that we recognize we will have to address those kind of details in terms of a future site plan application, assuming we're able to get the general conditional use approval through the zoning hearing examiner. We have a hearing date on April 22, with the zoning hearing examiner and the planning board on April 4. And so we want to work closely with everyone around the table and on the call to make sure we get the appropriate letters of recommendation and whatever conditions there would be that would kick in on the second phase of the approval process.
It's construction.
I'm
just, it's just an estimate. I'm just asking. I have no,
Yeah. So the way I refer to the site is this is an infrastructure project. Okay. So utility, I think about it, even though you call it a data center, these are utility infrastructure projects.
No, I get it.
So I would expect reasonably, if we're successful with this process, the battery storage project is likely going to be online by 2026. Okay. There are other permits, obviously, that we have to get outside of local permits for connecting a generation facility like that. Okay. Those were started 4 years ago. So we're way down the road, which is very good. But we've got another probably year in that process. We would, submit all planning documents to the county and go through that process. They would help to start construction. If you're doing a project like that, once you start construction, that does happen fast, the battery storage project. Data centers is a different conversation because they don't go out there and build them all at one time. It's going to happen in phases over a period of time. I think if it was tremendously successful, it would probably be done in 10 years. Probably longer than that. It just depends. It could also happen faster. But the thing that slows those projects down is the utility improvements and all the grid changes, because you can't turn on a light switch for several data centers at once. It takes a lot of upgrade. It takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of permitting. So that will be the slowest part, is the electrical infrastructure.
One other thing for everyone's benefit, because most of us deal with site plans and preliminary plans much more regularly than conditional uses. I refer you to the zoning code 59.7.3.1 that are the requirements for conditional use approval. We've addressed each of those requirements in our statement of justification, and they're very broad and general. Is it compatible with the area, and that sort of thing. I don't believe to make affirmative findings on those, we need to have identified things to the level of detail that we normally do in a site plan. But again, we will be following up with a site plan approval and believe that the conditional use will be conditioned on such site plan approval. Yep. Any other specific questions?
Yeah, I don't have any. I'll just say, Mark sent the comments to us. There's nothing on there that jumps off the page as a major concern. Having done this for a while on both sides of the table, I'm fully expecting the kind of comments that we're receiving, making sure that we're providing, in the case of emergency services, appropriate access, water volume for firefighting. How do people get in and out? How do they turn fire engines around? All those things are, and that's why I think, you look at this, I'm willing to stipulate we'll meet every county regulatory requirement when it comes to site plan. location of buildings, stormwater facilities, all of those things. It's an interesting site. And again, we really look at this as a way to use a historically bad use, improve the site, improve the land, conserve the forest, and sort of do the best we can for the community up there with what is industrial land. So that means a use that's going to have less light, less noise, a reduced view, not going to see anything that's there, and the traffic count is going to be at a same level or significantly lower, and that level is going to be passenger vehicles and not, not working vehicles and trucks and shipping vans and shipping trucks. So we really like that idea, trying to give a really good project, but also trying to reduce the impacts to the area.
So obviously, we'll be following up with individual agencies here to address comments that you already have provided, and to those agencies who haven't provided them yet, we hope that we can get them soon to stay on our schedule. And we're confident that we can address all the public issues here.
Thank you.
Well, Mark, thanks for organizing this, and as I said, we'll be following up with individual agencies. And if you want additional information from us that we haven't provided yet, you can either get a hold of me or let Mark know, and he'll email me.
Thank you.
Well, okay. Patrick, thank you.
Yeah. If anybody needs any further detail that we're not providing, or you have follow-up questions that we're an open book. I'd rather ask the question. And I'm happy to set up follow-up meetings as often and as quickly as anybody would want. So just.
It's an exciting project. It's really going to be helpful to, all of us who use the internet and store data, whether it be pictures of our kids or YouTube videos of, or Taylor Swift videos or whatever. Thanks, folks.
Thank you.
Excuse me.